Hello and thanks for joining me. I mentioned a few videos back that I had decided to participate in a book-to-film project, which was started by the booktuber Memento Mori, which sounded like so much fun. I thought, yeah, I'm going to need to dive in and do this because a couple of things that I do love are books and film. So it sounded like it was right up my alley, especially classic books. Some of the selections aren't necessarily considered classic yet because they're too new, but I think there's probably a pretty good chance they're destined to become classics. So Memento Mori, created the selections, and they are on his channel, which I will link to below. There will be one book a month in the corresponding film for the next year. And we're kicking off this project for June with The Night of the Hunter. The Night of the Hunter, the book, is by Davis Grub. And so what I thought I would do is talk a bit about the book first, and then I would talk about the film, The Night of the Hunter, as well. The Night of the Hunter book by Davis Grub. This was originally published in 1955. I read a 2015 vintage reprint. It's called Novels, Vintage Movie Classics, Novels That Inspired Great Films. Definitely the case in this case. Vintage reprint, I read an electronic edition from 2015. So this book, like I said, was originally published in 1953. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that this was a finalist for the National Book Award in 1955. So I hope I got that right. But nevertheless, it is considered by many to be the gold standard for Southern noir. And definitely, this book's definitely got kind of a noir feel to it, a Southern feel to it as well. It is set in, the story itself is set in West Virginia. It is set along the Ohio River in West Virginia during the Great Depression. What I thought I would do is read a little bit from, just to give you an idea of what the story's about. This is definitely a story that I don't want to give away any spoilers on, either with the book or the movie. But the foreword has a really cool quote, or just sort of a little detail about, or some details about the book that will give you sort of a feel for what the book is about. So here is from the foreword. Serial killers come and go in popular culture and rarely rise above the banal. But Preacher is something special. Eager for the next kill, he waits for God to give him the go-ahead. Is it time yet, Lord? Time for another widow? Say the word, Lord, just say the word, and I'm on my way. Sometimes, as when he surveys a prostitute whose pale neck seems to beckon the knife he keeps in his pocket, Preacher is overwhelmed. There were too many of them. He couldn't kill a world. He actually says that in the book at one point, I can't kill a world. Killing a world. Was there ever a better, more succinct mission statement for a serial killer? For the kind of criminal whose compulsions come in bunches and never let him go. Grub's novel is about a dark soul in a dark time, and it is about, too, the solace of fighting back against that darkness, and of knowing that children are man at his strongest, that they are possessed, this is a quote from the book, knowing that children are man at his strongest, that they are possessed in those few short seasons of the little years of more strength and endurance than God is ever to grant them again. In other words, game on. Let the hunter's night commence. So yeah, it's a kind of a thriller. It is a thriller. It's set in West Virginia, like I said, during the Great Depression. And it concerns a widow, or when the story opens, there's actually been a robbery. There's a man who, through desperate circumstances, the Great Depression, robbed a bank and then was killed by the police, or was actually not killed by the police, was in prison waiting to be executed, and it shared a cell with someone called the Preacher, who was referred to in that foreword, the quote from the foreword. And the Preacher is this killer, has a history of befriending widows and then killing them, and also has an issue with prostitutes and really women in general, I think it can be said. And he's also very greedy. So the young man, whose name is actually Walt, Ben. Ben and Willa Harper. Ben is the person who has committed the crime, has robbed the bank, and has hidden the money, so the money has never been found. Ben is ultimately then executed, leaving Willa as an orphan with two small children named John and Pearl. They have a couple of neighbors that are sort of nosy neighbors, yet somewhat kindly. They treat Willa kindly when she's widowed, and their names are Walt and Icy. And then later on in the book, we meet some other characters, and one is called Rachel, and I don't want to talk too much about her because that would really give away a lot of the plot, but nevertheless, there is a main character called Rachel who does make an appearance eventually in the book. So that's sort of the idea. So what ends up happening is, this evil person, preacher, comes into this rural world and totally catching the citizens there off guard. He has this love and hate tattoo. So you may have seen this reverberated through popular culture, right? Love on one set of fingers and then hate on, HATELOVE. And so he's known for that, but he presents himself as a preacher. So, needless to say, this family, the widow Willa, and the children John and Pearl, find themselves under the influence of the preacher. I don't want to give much else away about it. But the movie, to chat a bit about the movie, let me just call that picture back up. The movie itself, the movie came out in 1955, and it was directed by Charles Laughton. The only movie he ever directed, from what I read. The film was not that well received, from what I could understand. And Charles Laughton actually, from what I read, due to the poor reception that the film got at its release, vowed to never make another film, and he never did. But it stars Robert Mitchum, is preacher, and then Shelley Winters is Willa, the widow. Lillian Gish plays Rachel, the character that I mentioned. So Lillian Gish, the great silent film star from the silent era, and then she also had her career continued on throughout most of the 20th century. I think she was still doing films even in the 70s. So, this film came out, like I said, in 1955. I happened to see this on the big screen. Catch that. Yeah, how lucky was this? I had just recently kind of heard about the film club coming, and we have a theater here called AFI Silver, and it I just happened to check that for another reason, and I saw that Night of the Hunter was playing, and I caught the very last show. AFI Silver, American Film Institute there, was doing a Robert Mitchum retrospective, and so I caught the very last show, so I did get a chance to see this on the big screen, which was absolutely awesome. This film has such an atmosphere, very noir, like I mentioned, very Southern noir, and so it was filmed in this. I knew right away that we were getting set up for a good versus evil kind of story because of the soundtrack, the score, the film score. I thought was just very appropriate. It really set this tension, and that tension really played out throughout the entire movie. As the story unfolds and as the various things happen to our characters. So what a treat that was to see on the big screen. I had seen this partially. I had never seen the complete film. I had seen it partially before, but I had not seen the entire film, and I don't remember what interrupted me that I didn't see the rest of it before. But anyway, this was a kind of a first, because it was the first time I'd seen the film all the way through. So I enjoyed this so much, but I think the film would be totally enjoyable, if you don't get a chance to see it on the big screen, anywhere that you would be able to see it. So my thoughts about it. So about the film and the book, the one thought I had about it was children, like in the book and in the film. I think the film actually was adapted from the book very closely, so there's not a lot of difference in the two. From the way the story unfolded and even the characters. But one thing that's sort of recurring in the book, especially, I got this idea, was children, referring to adults as children. John, the young boy, actually knows where this money that his dad hidden. He knows where it is, as does his little sister, like 4-year-old sister Pearl. And so he's got a task of like keeping this secret because he will not give up where the money's located. And he's also got this task of keeping Pearl, who's a child, under, so that she doesn't give up where the money is hidden either. But the adults in the movie are frequently referred to as children, or just, obliquely given childlike references. And so John, the young boy, really in some ways outside of Rachel, and maybe you could even say Ben, the father, the one who committed the robbery and was executed. I think in a way those were really the three adults. In some cases, Walt, the next door neighbor, acts as an adult, but most of the adults fail this young John and Pearl. Actually, they almost all do. Except there are exceptions, but there's an exception. I thought that was really kind of interesting how the adults were sort of not portrayed as children, but alluded to with child references as if they were children. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then the other kind of thing I took away, especially from the film, I got this from the film more than the book, was this fairy tale quality. Fairy tales are actually pretty gruesome most of the time. If you read Grimm's fairy tales, children are in danger of really horrific deaths. And this is the case, right? So it really has a Grimm's fairy tale, especially the film. Watching this and seeing it unfold as one of these horrific fairy tales where the children are against these almost supernaturally evil forces, for their lives. So I thought that was really kind of interesting as well. So there's an image that really haunts me about this movie, about the film and the book, and that's this figure standing outside your window. There's a gas light in front of the house where Willa, the widow, lives along with these two children. And if you were at your house and you look out your window and you have maybe a street light in front of your house and you happen to notice a figure standing there, a lone figure standing there, that would kind of be a little bit creepy, right? And they're just standing there staring at your house. That scene in the book and movie, and this recurred a couple of times in different settings. This sort of imagery occurred in the book and in the film several different times, and I just thought that was so cool. So I'm going to run out of time, but I wanted to end with a quote from the from the book that was about children. This quote is from Rachel, the character Rachel that I alluded to. So let me just pull that up real quick if I can find it quickly. It says, "Lord, save little children, because with every child born of a woman's womb, there is a time of running through a shadowed place, an alley with no doors, and a hunter whose footsteps ring brightly along the bricks behind them. With every child, rich or poor, however favored, however warm and safe, the nursery, there is this time of echoing and vast aloneness, when there is no one to come and hear, nor to hear, and dry leaves scurrying past along a street become the rustle of dread, and the ticking of the old house is the cocking of the hunter's gun. For even when the older ones love and care and are troubled for the small ones, there is little they can do as they look into the grave and stricken eyes that are windows to this affrighted nursery province beyond all succor, all comforting." To Rachel, the most dreadful and moving thing of all was the humbling grace with which these small ones accept their lot. Lord, save little children. Just think that quote is so cool because children are in peril. All children, this book has specific children in a specific case, but all children really have to run a gauntlet of forces in the world before they can be safe. So I think that's what she's trying to say there in that quote. So I love that quote from the film. So yeah, I'm out of time, but I wanted to touch base. Next month, July, we will be reading, let me just pull up the cover real quick before I'm out of time. We will be reading The Children of Men by P.D. James. The film was from 2006. The director of the film was Alfonso Cuarón. So this will be coming up, The Children of Men, P.D. James, a 1990 book by P.D. James and a 2006 film by Alfonso Cuarón. I will post a video on Children of Men the last Thursday of July, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, take care. Bye.